Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're going to make a truffle cheese. I was kindly donated some truffles by Shane from Blackwood Park Truffles. Now, that is in Moles Creek in Tasmania. So those who are in Tassie, you can pop along to get some. However, Shane does ship all over the world. Now, he gave these to me for free. Here's a picture of the lovely truffles that I started out with before the cheese video. Okay, so the plan was that I make a stabilised paste mould ripened cheese, so like a fake camembert as I call it, and shave in some of the truffles and put them in layers as I go along. Now, I did that. However, the white mould did not grow on the outside of the cheese. Why did that happen? Well, either I forgot to put the Penicillium candidum in, which I think I did, or the cheeses are a little bit too large, or there's not enough moisture. Now, I'm pretty sure there's enough moisture. I've been turning them. However, the cheese is very soft, which is good. I've matured these for about 8 weeks and they look okay. So let me just pull them out. I'll just show you one of them. As I said, very moist and stuck to the mat. There we go. So very creamy. So Penicillium candidum has grown on part of it on the outside, and so has a little bit of Penicillium roqueforti, which is the blue mold. So I got white mold and blue mold. The smells very earthy, which is good. Now I did notice I had a little bit of truffle left, and I just checked that today, and it had gone all squishy. Because truffles don't last that long, and it had a coat of white mould on the outside. So this white mould that's on the outside, the Penicillium, it's either Geotrichum candidum or Penicillium candidum, was on the truffle itself. So it could be that. But before we go any further, let me show you how I made this stabilised paste truffle cheese, but without the white mould on it, of course. So the 3 truffles that were sent to me weighed in at about 90 grams. I'm not sure how much that costs, but it's a fair bit, I think. Anyway, I set out all my ingredients. I'm using Floridanica, a thermophilic culture, and of course the truffle. And there's the star attraction of the cheese. Now, I made sure it was washed, and as you can see there, I'm just using a clean toothbrush. It's not been used before, got it straight out of a packet, and just gave it a wash under the water and a bit of a scrub to get any dirt out so it doesn't get infected. Now, don't forget to sanitize all the rest of your stainless steel equipment, and I did that in boiling water. And the milk I'm using today is from Inglenook Dairy, a great product. Now, the ingredients I used was 7.6 litres or 1 gallon of whole cow's milk, 500 millilitres or 2 cups of pure heavy cream, 1/16 of a teaspoon of Floridanica or Sacco MO36R aromatic mesophilic, 1/16 of a teaspoon of Thermophilic culture of your choice, 1/16 of a teaspoon of Penicillium candidum, 1/32 of a teaspoon of Geotrichum candidum, half a teaspoon or 2.5 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water, 20 drops or 1 millilitre of single strength liquid rennet in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water, and 18% brine solution, and some truffles, either freshly grated, freeze-dried or powdered. So heat your milk up to 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I did that directly on the stove and then put it into my water bath, which I've got my precision cooker heating up the milk for the duration of the cheese making process. So once it gets to the target temperature, which it has now, close enough, 35, yep, perfect. Just adjust the precision cooker there a little bit, just to bring it up a little bit further. There we go, 35. So I'm just skimming, there's some fat sitting on the top there, just skimming that off so it doesn't go into the final product. And now I'm preparing my starter cultures. Firstly adding the Thermophilic starter culture, just sprinkle that over the top of the milk. Now I'm adding the Chloride, just sprinkle that over as well. And now I'm adding the two moulds. Firstly the Penicillium candidum. And a smaller amount of the Geotrichum candidum. Now the Geo does actually prepare the surface of the cheese and makes it a little bit less acidic, but it may not have worked in this case. So cover that up and allow it to rehydrate for 5 minutes. Now after the 5 minutes, we're going to stir in the cultures and the moulds into the milk. There we go, stir it all in there so it's well mixed. Just checking the temperature, hasn't drifted up any. So cover that and we're going to allow the milk to ripen for 3 hours. Okay, so 3 hours later, just going to stir the cream that's flowed to the top and stir that back into the milk again. Now I'm just going to check the pH of the milk to see if it's acidified enough. It should be between 6.2 and 6. Now if it isn't at that range, then you'll need to leave it for about another 20 minutes. Now I checked it and it's a 6.2, which is perfect. So we're going to add the calcium chloride now. Just stir that through. Now calcium chloride adds back soluble calcium after the milk's been heat treated to help it set a better curd, which is why we always add it before we add the rennet. Now that's all mixed through, and now we're going to add the rennet to the milk. Now stir that for no more than 1 minute. So we're going to cover that back up again. And we'll allow that to set for 45 minutes. Now I'm going to check for a clean break now to make sure that it's set okay. So just with a knife, just put it in there and then just twist it. And it should come apart cleanly. That's a little bit sloppy for my tastes. So I'm going to leave that to set further. So I'll just cover that back up again. And I'm going to wait another 10 minutes. Now that should firm up enough. in that time. If it doesn't, then let it set until it needs to, until you get a clean break. So checking for a clean break again. Much better. Big thumbs up from Gav. Now we're going to cut the curds into 1.25 centimetre or half-inch cubes. Just doing that the horizontals with the curd harp and the verticals with the curd knife, trying to make it as accurate as I can. So cutting the curd expels more whey. So we're going to let the curds to heal for 10 minutes. This stops them from fracturing during the first stir. So we're just going to gently stir them now. Look for any pieces that we've missed during the cutting. Just gently lift the curds. There we go. So I'm going to pop the lid back on and then stir the curds every 10 minutes for 3 repetitions. So there's the first stir, or once, twice, and the third stir, or thrice. So we're going to allow the curds now to settle for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, heat up 3 litres of 3 quarts of water to 35 Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit. Then we're going to remove 3 litres or 3 quarts of whey. So I'm just measuring out 1.5 litres each time into my Pyrex jug. So just give it a gentle stir for about 10 seconds just to prevent it from matting together before we add the water into it. So we're going to add the warm water we previously heated. Now the reason we do this is to reduce the overall acidity of the curds. It doesn't give the lactic bacteria that you added into the milk at the start any food to develop any further acidification. So I'm going to stir for about 30 seconds just to make sure that the curds haven't matted. So we're washing the curds there. I'm going to cover it up again and let it rest for 10 minutes. Just give it a quick stir again for 30 seconds. Just a quick wash. Then cover again. And now rest this time for 30 minutes so it settles to the bottom. So we're going to remove it from the heat. So I'm taking away my precision cooker and taking the water out of the sink. Now we're going to remove the whey down to the level of the curds. Just makes it easier to ladle into the moulds. Now because that's diluted, it's going straight into the sink, down the drain. So just using a skimmer, I'm going to ladle the curds into 4 10cm or 4-inch moulds. These are typically used for camembert. Now I'm not going to fill these all the way up, but I am filling them evenly, so trying to get them mostly the same. So I'm filling them to about 1/3 full, and then I'm going to add a layer of truffles. So I'm going to use a microplaner and shave a bit of the truffles freshly onto that layer of the curds. Doesn't have to be a thick layer or anything like that. It's just a fine layer of grated truffles. It's just to add a little bit of texture, a little bit of flavour into the final cheese, and to make it a little bit visually appealing. Okay, so fill the moulds with curds until they're 2/3 full this time. Try not to spill any. It's too precious. Now you'll notice from previous versions of the stabilised paste washed curd mould ripened cheese, which this is, I only used 4 litres of milk. This time I used 8, so I wanted to double it. I wanted to be a bit greedy and make 4 cheeses. Anyway, so we're up to 2/3 now, and I'm going to add another layer of shaven truffles over the top, or grated truffle. So a nice even layer. And it was smelling amazing about this time. Fresh truffles always smell fantastic. So now fill the moulds with the remaining curds. There should be enough in there to top up each of the moulds. Don't waste any. So you can see how much of the truffles I put into each of them in each layer there, just in that close-up. And as I said, just use up the remainder of the curds that you've got. Trying to make it, fairly level at the end. So I'm just going to add a little bit more truffle just for show, just a fine grating there. So it also helps me remember which surface is the top and the bottom, so when I flip it, it'll be fine. So just drain that for 1 hour. And they should be firm enough now, just a quick wash of the hands before we proceed. So they should be firm enough to flip now out of the basket. You don't need a top and bottom mat and cheese board there. So they're firm enough in this method, just flip them over into their moulds. That'll give a flat surface top and bottom to allow the white mould to grow on them. So we're going to do this 3 times over 5 hours. So this helps them drain more whey and to compact down in their moulds without using any form of weight or pressure. Now I have seen in some commercial facilities they add a little stainless steel disc and pop that on top, which provides a little bit of weight, and it also helps make a flat surface on the cheese as well. But I don't have anything like that, so this turning process seems to work okay for me. So after the final flipping, just drain for 12 hours or overnight. Don't have to wake up in the middle of the night to do anything here. So I'm just flipping them over just to make sure that they're flat on the bottom or the top, or whatever that was. Don't really have to do this step here. I'm just making sure they're okay. They haven't really shrunk too much more overnight, but I think they're okay in size. They're not too tall. I thought they were initially, but they're not too bad. They could be a bit smaller. Okay, so they're ready for brining now. Now, instead of putting them in my normal round tub, I'm just going to pour the brine from my brining tub into the ripening box, just taking out the mat that it's normally sitting in. Gav, take the mat out. Okay, so pour the brine just into the ripening box there. We're going to brine it between 3 to 4 hours, depending on how salty you want them. Now, I want them on the saltier side, so I chose 4 hours. So we're just going to take each cheese out of the mould and just plonk it into the brine, and they float if you're using an 18% brine solution, which I am. And the ripening box is the perfect size to brine your 4 cheeses. Now you can dry salt them if you want, just cover them in salt, rub a little bit on. But because they're floating, we're just going to add a little bit of a layer of salt on the top. After 2 hours of brining time, flip them over and then just salt again on the top. Just cover them so no dust gets on them. So this is all at room temperature. So I chose 4 hours, as I mentioned. I wanted them on the saltier side. I would not go past 4 hours. They'll be way too salty. So remove the cheese from the brine and place them on a mat. Now I'm just going to reserve that brine, strain that, get rid of any truffle that's in it. Use it in any future cheeses that I may brine. So once I've dried the box out, I'll just place them into the ripening box and allow them to air dry uncovered for 24 hours and turn them every 6 hours. So a bit of whey's been expelled, a bit of moisture on the top of the lid. There'll also be some in the ripening box itself. So they smell very earthy. Now I didn't see too much moisture in the bottom, so that's why I chose not to tip any out. Just giving them a bit of a flip there. So once after the air drying, then cover and then ripen in the cheese fridge 11 degrees Celsius or 52 Fahrenheit at 90% until it is coated with a white mould, and turn them every 2 days. Now, as you'll see in the final thoughts, these are too close. I should have had only two in a ripening box. Now it should take about 14 to 21 days to get a full cover of mould, but they need a bit more air than this. This is too crowded. So don't forget to turn regularly during that 14 to 21 days to prevent the cheese from sticking to the mat, which it will do as it gets softer. So pop it back in the cheese fridge after you've flipped them. So once they're fully covered in mould, which these are not, you would wrap them in micro-perforated cheese wrap, and then after you've done that, you would then pop them back into the kitchen fridge this time to slow down the ripening. So I'm just wiping out the ripening box there,
I'm a bit perplexed as to why there isn't any mould growth. This is at about 14 days. There should have been some by now. So I was a bit surprised, but I kept going, as you do when you're making cheese. Nothing's ever a failure. So once you've wrapped the cheeses in the micro-perforated cheese wrap, then pop them into the ripening box and mature them at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit for 4 to 6 weeks until they're soft to press. And that way you'll know they're ripe. Anyway, back to Gav.
So that's how we make stabilised paste truffle cheese. So, very soft to touch. It has matured. So let me just cut into it. I can notice on the outside of the truffles that, the outside, you can see that there's little lines of blue. Now that's actually the truffles that are left behind. So, very soft to cut. Let's have a look. Bit sticky, but you can definitely see the truffle lines, and it's a bit of an oozy cheese, but that's okay. Don't mind oozy cheeses. You can see the line of the truffles through the cheese where I shaved it. Looks really nice. So I will see if I got a cracker somewhere. So I've got these little seed crackers. They're just, all they are is seed. There's no flowers in them. I don't know how it's joined together, but some sort of binder. Anyway, I think this will probably go well. The texture will be nice with this. So let's try the cheese and see what it tastes like, shall we? Like I said, very oozy, very creamy. Just put this bit out the way. It's kind of like sticking to the board. That's how oozy it is. We'll just cut a bit off. Oh, very creamy. So, maybe the Penicillium candidum wasn't there. It wouldn't be this creamy otherwise. Oh, bit of truffle, let's see. Oh, it smells earthy. It smells great. The inside of the cheese. Wish I didn't have to keep my apron clean or I'd just wipe my hands all over it. Anyway, it's really creamy, very spreadable. Let's just try it. Oh my God. That is so nice. I thought this was going to be a complete failure, but this is great. Oh, the truffle flavour. It's so earthy. It's just nothing like I've ever tasted before. This is amazing. Oh, this is so good. Kim's going to love this. Smooth and creamy. The right amount of salt. And the truffle flavour through the cheese. It's all the way through. Oh, this is great. Looks can be deceiving, folks. Cut another bit off there. Big bit of truffle. Oh. So let's just taste it without, oh, it's got lots and lots of truffle in there. Oh, that is beautiful. That flavour is just, it's a culinary delight, that's for sure. Well, thank you, Shane, so much for sending through those truffles. Hope you were a roaring success on your truffle business. So it's Blackwood Park Truffles in Mole Creek in Tasmania. And I'll put a link down to the website just as a kind gesture for Shane sending me the truffles. He didn't pay me for the video or anything like that. He just sent me the truffles to give a try, because we've been talking about via email back and forth on how we would best use truffles in a cheese. And I think this is perfect. This is absolutely amazing. As you notice, I never wrapped these because I never got to the stage of having a white mold coating all over. You can't taste any of the Penicillium Roquefort 40 that's present, just lightly on the surface. Certainly didn't penetrate into the cheese because I didn't pierce it and put any eyes in it. But the overall paste, when I put it into the ripening box, the cheese itself was very, very firm. But I'm so pleased that these are softened, they're smooth, creamy, beautiful flavour on the tongue. You've got that cheese and then you've got the truffles as well that really do accentuate the flavour of this cheese. So, if you can afford it, then pick yourself up some truffles wherever you are in the world. If you're in Australia, like I said, Blackwood Park truffles in Mole Creek in Tasmania is the place to go and get some. They are lovely. So I'm going to have to wrap these up now in some sort of, I'll have to get some cheese wrap and wrap them up because I want to store them in the kitchen fridge a little bit longer at 4 degrees Celsius so they don't soften too much more and we can eat them at our leisure over the next month or so, or even give some away.
Well, I've been waiting for a while to do this part of the video. I don't usually do an afterwards or a post-mortem, I suppose, on what the cheese was like. I ate it for about 2 weeks and then it became overripe, far too acidic for my liking, which then led me to believe that the white mold didn't grow because the surface was way too acidic. White mold doesn't like a really acidic rind and it won't grow properly. So therefore I think that was one of the main factors of why the white mold didn't grow. The other factor was there was not enough airflow in the ripening box, so that was a bit of an issue. I should have put 2 per ripening box, and possibly they were way too tall as well to make it look like even camembert. I should have cut them in half because the smaller the cheese, the quicker it ripens and the better it tastes. And the white mold coverage doesn't get inhibited by the height of the cheese. It works a lot better. So there's some limiting factors on why the white mold didn't grow. Way too acidic, as I mentioned, so probably ease off on the starter culture, but you can't do much about that. So that's what I would have done. I had to throw them away. In the end, I had to throw 2 of them. I ate 2 of them, or me and Kim did anyway, because I couldn't reprocess them using sodium citrate. They were way too runny and too overbearing in smell and taste. But well worth making if you can nail it, I reckon. You can not only use shaved truffles like I did, but you could use freeze-dried truffle. You could also use truffle powder. I wouldn't use truffle oil because that would inhibit the bacterial growth. So definitely try it and give it a go. I think it's well worth experimenting with truffles. And thanks again to Shane for providing me with those truffles.
Alrighty, thank you for watching the truffle cheese video. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you try making something like this. And if you have more success with the white mold than I did, then well done. You're a better cheese maker than me, which wouldn't be hard because I've had, a couple of, well, not failures, but a couple of mistakes along the way in the last few videos. But if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a like. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so and ring that little bell so you get notified of more cheesy content. If you would like to support the show financially, there are links below for YouTube memberships and for Patreon. Well, thank you for watching Curd Nerds. It's been a great cheese and great fun. We will see you next time.